So it's been a while since I've binge-watched a show within like a 14-hour span. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I watched My Dress-Up Darling, which was just lovely. And I want to talk to you about it today. Also, because this is a very, very new, just finished show, there's no news on season 2, besides the fact that this show was beating Attack on Titan. Demon Slayer is beloved within its arrival. Like, this show has insane probability of getting a second season. It's just a question of when it's going to arrive. I couldn't expect it too long, maybe a 2-year hiatus or a 1.5 year maybe hiatus, given its popularity and given that it's not also like an incredibly strenuous, at least in my opinion, kind of like combat-driven animations, particle effects, this and that. Ideally, those shows kind of have, at least in my experience, a higher turnover. Ladies and gentlemen, My Dress-Up Darling is a slice of life wonderful show, is a slice of life show that is simply, it's basically if you had a cosplay GF/BFF and just were kind of magnetic to beautiful people all the time, or found yourself in a hobby that had a lot of beautiful people in it. Also, a lot of cool weeb trash nonsense. I say that as a part of the community, okay? But in all seriousness, the premise of the show is essentially there's this kid who at a very young age seems to have a proclivity towards things that may otherwise be feminine or perceived as feminine activities. I say perceived there with big, big bold words. So basically he has a liking for, I'm not going to spoil it, he enjoys things that maybe people would determine to be an effeminate idea or a thing. Pretty things, we'll say. Regardless, he gets judged for this at a young age, which kind of evolves when he gets in high school to being this insular kind of thing, where his love of his life, his hobbies, the thing he enjoys the most, he doesn't tell anybody because of this judgment that happened when he was young. And because of this, he kind of isolates himself deeply. And of course, there is this absolute extrovert, super larger than life, beautiful kind of designed character who just happens to really, really, really like cosplay. And one of his hobbies facilitates the art form of that, specifically sewing, let's say. And essentially that evolves into him, this girl, and him having this friendship, this very introverted, I shouldn't say introverted, quiet and reserved, I'll say, person, and this larger-than-life character coming together to, of course, design and create cosplay. Turns out this girl's also like the perfect catalyst of what I think a dude wants a woman to be. We'll get into that later in the video because I don't want to come for anybody. But she's like super playful, like crazy playful. Also plays like porn games, etc. All these things. Also looks gorgeous, takes care of herself. All those things. Pretty independent to boot. A stacked deck, to say the least. Anyways. But it evolves into essentially there being this thing where, to him, he's constantly being pulled out of his comfort zone and put into instances that he otherwise wouldn't find himself in. Very quiet, very reserved, very talented, and very, very considerate. If there's any trait that I think I could summarize him having, is he's considerate and he's caring, and he's patient, I would say, which is very lovely traits. And she is like extroverted, spontaneous, and also like incredibly, I don't want to say fun because I feel like that's a scapegoat, but she's just a person that constantly seems like she wants to do things and is excited to experience all that is the world, I guess. And yeah, it's their journey of pursuing cosplay in a very fun, lighthearted, sometimes a little bit lewd, but not too much kind of run. And that's, if I could give anybody like a bumper for this, we're no longer selling the show. If any of that interests you, go check it out. It's very fun. It does have okay, that's done. I didn't find this show to be perverse or itchy or really lewd, actually, at all. Like, and I think that's maybe the thing is I noticed going online that there was a lot of like booba, like, oh my god, booba, bikini booba, booba in like cool succubus attire, all this stuff, but it doesn't seem that way to me. Maybe it's because of like the wholesomeness to it, but like, so even if, as long, like, you could be butt-ass thing, but as long as you're like super sweet and kind and caring and considerate, it takes away, for me at least, the sexualization aspect of it. I don't know. I just was expecting this show to be like pretty like, okay, it was made by a person that made Harada, and usually you can tell. But I don't know, I found that was the one shocking thing of it. I was really expecting this to be excessively like fan servicey or just straight up itchy, just showing promiscuous things. Funny thing is, I find the show Kokomi Can't Communicate more like, oh goddamn, than this one. And maybe it's because of, like, for me, when someone explicitly says like I'm wet or something, it's a bit much. It's like, oh shit, we're real, it's real now. You didn't beat around the bush. Whereas in this show, it's literally just like outfits and like style and like yeah, skin, belly, booba, sure. But like there's also some animes that like you can see the outline of people's things below the belt. Yeah. Okay, maybe hey, don't look at me. Okay, look over there. But in all seriousness, I didn't notice it to be that pervasive. If anything, I found that it actually, if you're a person that enjoys, it sounds kind of maybe cringy, but if you, that's my own weirdness coming through, but if you're a person that enjoys style and like curves and symmetry and like things coming together in a cohesive and like satisfying style way, this is what the show to me kind of builds on. And yes, there are moments where it's honestly really only one moment, maybe two moments in the series that I thought were a little bit close to the wire, but not even that close, not even near as close as some other animes get that don't really have this ego, this aura of like, this is kind of a taboo perversion kind of thing. Yeah, it's like there's the one scene where he opens up the like bathroom, sees a person, sure, and there's last scene where the girl's on top of him grinding, essentially. That's it. But that sounds way worse than what we actually seen, essentially. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into actually talking about the show as a whole. A little bit spoilery. I'll ramp up in my spoiler places, so get ready to jump ship. One of the things I mentioned in the open is I binged this show fast. Like, I messed up, actually. I was sick one day, and I thought, I'll watch 2 episodes, and I was done. This show goes back like a breeze. And I don't know why that is. I think it's just like, maybe it's sometimes when you're watching like a really good slice of life show, like you're just like caught into the like positive tingly emotions of like, oh, look at that, it's so sweet, oh, that's so wholesome, oh, that's a little daring, and then you kind of pivot back and forth. I never felt that last emotion though. I never felt throughout the entire time watching it that like, ooh, ooh, getting a little spicy, nothing, none of that. I don't know what it is. I was really expecting to feel like, oh Jesus, but not a thing. I'm curious what you guys think. I feel like this show was labeled that and I didn't get a lick of that, but this might be why. And I wanted to wait to talk about this, but I think I'll talk about it right now. I talked about this on stream with you guys, and I got no response, which leaves me like, oh, oh no. I found myself watching this show in very, very much liking the main character. I thought the main character was incredibly well done. And I thought the one girl was fantastic as well. She's very good. But I'd put him above her in a way. And I know that's going to surprise people, and I think this is just like a quick peek behind who I am a little bit. Sorry, I don't mean to do this too much, but I really like style. From a young age, I've always liked the idea of style. When clothing looks well, I can like, yeah, when like, I don't know, to me, I never get turned off by the idea of like, sometimes female friends will come to me and ask about what kind of hairstyle they want to pick. And to me, that's never been like, oh God, I don't know how this one. To me, I've always been like, that one looks great, but I think it wouldn't work with your skin pigment. I love it. I don't know what it is. And similar to the story in the show, I didn't pursue it because I hate to admit it now as an older person, but I didn't like the idea that people were perceiving me as something that I'm not. Which would be gay. and I know it's weird, but I just didn't like the idea that I'm not that, and that people seem to put that on me, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a thing that I hate saying that, but it's true, if I can be honest. And it sucks that like, I hate, the thing that deeply makes me resent that past old self was that I let people limitate what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And I'm perfect. I'm very happy right now. Very content with my life and enjoying what I'm doing. But if I always think if I could do a repeat of my life, I would love to invest in like trying to pursue being a designer and coming up with clothes. 'Cause I love those things. But anyways, so to me, I kind of really, in a weird way, relate to this character, and I find him. I don't know what it is. I find it like I appreciate a lot of the other things about the character too. The fact that he seems to be very patient, very gentle, considerate and kind, and that's done within shows, but it's usually done in this way that's super larger than life. That seems almost like empty because they're like, why do you feel the way you do? Where they do a good job with the show of like, I was isolated for such a long time that the idea that this person is pulling me along their life essentially and like forcing me to see other things that I would never have seen, and then for me to have this like reverence not only for the things I'm seeing but for them because they're pulling me through and actually like letting me become something more than what I was. Like that to me, you're like, oh, okay, like I get that. That makes sense to me. I'm like, okay, yeah, of course. Why would you like deeply appreciate this person? Because that's something that's in the show as well, is that it hasn't really unraveled that yet. It seems like the character, like the girl, is fucking in, which I think is why a lot of people like the show, is because it's just like a heroine that's not this fucking tsundere nightmare hell. It's just that she's like, I'm in love with this person. And it's funny because a lot of times you'll see that within relationships of like when people are in love, they're messy. They're just like their reason is out the window, but they're just hopelessly in love. And it's such a human desiring thing. And the fact that like he's trying on, and I've seen this with other forms of my actual life where I've seen like a woman pick out clothes for her man. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like you have a style to you. You have like you put yourself together in this like puzzle beautiful sequence. I really like clothes again. You put yourself together in this way, and then you see, and then your husband is like look like a crazy person, and apparently he says you pick his clothes. So either you're self-sabotaging or you genuinely think he looks cute in just about anything, which is really adorable and very sweet. But that's kind of the thing that we see in the show, is where she's just like, oh my god, he looks great on this, he looks great on this, and he's kind of like, what the fuck? This I know a little bit, and this is not it. This is not it. And it's incredibly charming and just such a warm hug of a show. But that was the one thing I was going to point out, is they haven't got to a point where they've made him like recognize that. He just kind of knows that she's incredibly attractive essentially, but because she is in his mind such a high, like he's just happy to be around essentially. He's just happy to be even in this person's presence because they're so unalike, and he feels so grateful for the fact that she is, being a good person to him, like actually doing that. Also, he's able to get through, I think, his bullshit because he's providing value to that person, which allows him to kind of rationalize, oh, this person's actually putting up with me. And it's like, well, because I'm actually doing good work, I guess. And it's like, no, this person deeply loves you. Granted, it might be because you're doing good work as well. And that's how you got that far. But yeah, there's not a point where he's like, I like her, she likes me. It's kind of just like oh my god, you're so fucking hot. What do I do with this? What is happening? Also, there are a couple of moments where they just kind of like heavily imply just jerking it real hard. You're just like, okay, why dude? Although I get it. Also, another thing that they do in the show that to me is interesting, because they talk about like a lot of ideas here, but one of the things that they like a lot of shows don't talk about is how there are some people in the world who have it's not wrong, but it's just like, for me, it's entirely different. Like, I'm a person who doesn't really like to like show my body, but there are people who like define that as like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. So the fact that this person is just really like liberal with the fact that she's like, everybody can see her, it doesn't matter. And in fact, the one thing she has like a slight proclivity to where she gets a little bit embarrassed when things happen is when she is seen without her contacts or makeup, which is interesting. But it's funny because it makes sense through like the psychology of the mind of like, people create these barriers for themselves that are their isolation points. So for a lot of women, I would assume, I have no idea, but the notion of showing yourself without makeup is quite the courageous thing. Granted, it shouldn't be. I think a larger amount of people would agree with that. Maybe, well, that shouldn't be the case. Everyone's not perfect, etc. But her without her contacts or thing is, I think, the barrier that she uses that gives her that kind of like, oh, I can like shine as hard as I want because I'm kind of not like, I'm kind of just playing up the idea of myself rather than what I truly am, but if I show you who I truly am, then that's terrifying, but that's also how I'm able to kind of put on clothing that's super revealing, do all this other stuff that's super revealing, etc. Again, the show does a lot of stuff like that. And again, I know you guys always give me shit for like decoding shows too much. I don't know, I think it's fun. I have a problem where I can't help but like try to delve into the mind of people a little. But the one thing I can't like not talk about enough is that the main character to me, and I was just not expecting this, which is why maybe it's like sticking so hard for me, but the main character and in his idea that he has this like reverence for these dolls, like that's his one thing. He wants to draw them, he wants to build them up, he wants to make them immaculate and perfect. And it's funny because it's kind of a testament to art too. The show talks about that passively. That if you want to become good at things, the trap that you can find yourself in, especially as an artist to any extent, is the limitation of your art form, is to not realize that inspiration and utility and skills can come in the form of 1,000 different types of filtering of those skills. So the idea of like finding out how to do makeup would actually help with him drawing the makeup on his weird doll creatures, etc. I say weird creature. Yeah, I'm part of the problem. Okay, but to me, it's just to kind of anticipate, like to communicate what I think his reservations are of things as well. Also, I gotta give a round of applause to the voice actors. Like the voice actor who voices the main character is like has the most tender, gentle, soft voice ever. And again, with just the right amount of music, they can make that soft voice basically like dig deep and cradle the viewer. And it's funny because I think the show, the reason why it's so obscenely popular, for multiple reasons, but one of those reasons is I think it applies to both people, and very rarely do shows do this. If it is, it's usually skewed in one direction or the other, where like the heroines are usually way developed, they're constantly given screen time, and the dude is like literally nothing. He's just like I'm kind of handsome, and then that's it. Or they're literally the worst. Like they have no remotable, interesting traits, etc. So that you can presuppose your face onto them or something, whatever the subconscious thing is. But then there's the other option where like the dudes are like the main developed characters, and the heroines are not very developed. The dudes are still kind of built to be a little bit like nothing, so that you can presuppose your it's a whole thing. But this show does a really good job about doing both. I think like the main, I can see a lot of girls liking this show just because of the fact that it builds the cradling idea of this character who's just real nice and serene and understanding and patient, etc. And it's funny because they kind of surround the main dude with like decent contrast of like there's these giga chads who wear like pierced earrings and they're like I want to get laid, and the dude's just like I just like to make fucking doll faces. Which I say, when you put it up to each other like that, it's a little like, oh, okay, this might be like an antidote to like, I think we're getting into the thing I wanted to talk about towards the very end. But it could be like a perspective of like, oh, I play video games all day, or oh, I'm a person who like writes manga, etc. This kind of hyper demanding obsession of this art, of this thing I do, demanding my time and attention, but that doesn't determine me as a person. That doesn't define me as a person as being boring or not wanting to do things, etc. Yeah, and then for the dude aspect of things, I think like it is so. like the best way to describe it is so many dudes are like, the mind of a woman is chaos incarnate, and I have no idea what's happening. But I hope I'm gonna be okay. Basically, hope I'm not gonna fuck this up and say some stupid shit. But so the fact that like there is a slight peek behind the curtain, which maybe is not real, but to like for dudes, I could say as for me, I can speak on behalf of myself. The idea of like seeing a person get super giddy about like. Just you. like she's just sitting there watching TV shows, and she's looking at him from like a side profile, and she's like, oh my god. And to think that a person could be looking at you in the same way that a lot of men, I think, look at their women, they're like girls, etc. Just the fact that they're like, how fucking pretty can people be? What's happening? God, I hate myself. You want to shave off the last part of that. You want to get rid of that last ending. But I'm curious what they're doing with the, like, I feel like they may be setting up not the harem thing, but like the idea that the main character has such, I don't mean to be this way, but like such a poor evaluation of his self-worth and the people that value him. that I think what they're gonna do, what the author I think is gonna try to build up to doing is like there's this weird thing where the tiny girl who's like plays kids, cosplays kids, and her sister, he's both like passively, very subliminally, without even considering the impact he's kind of doing for these people on like an emotional level. He's kind of just trying to like take care of them, but he's not like realizing that he's genuinely making like a huge impact in their life and love towards him. That I think they're trying to build up this idea that eventually he's going to have the realization of like, oh wow, these people really care about me, like a lot. And I think the way the author's doing that is by making each one of these people potentially be a love interest, although I can't see them not doing the main person, because she just has so much screen time. It'd be the most kick in the face thing on the planet if she didn't win out on all this whole battle royale hoedown showdown thing. I will say there are moments like that are weird to me though. Like there's these moments where things keep going on, and it's interesting because from her perspective, I kind of get it, but from his perspective, I get it too. But there's this thing where, like, from her perspective, it seems like a lot. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't know that he's, like, super reserved. Well, she does, but she doesn't know, like, the mental toll that she is providing him that release, essentially. So I don't think she knows that he cares so deeply about the fact that she spends time with him, etc. Maybe she does. In the manga, they make that explicit, but I feel like there's pretty big skewed thing where he's like taking a shit ton of his reserved time and designing these intricate clothing with him. And yes, you're like paying for the supplies, but you're not paying him. Like, what? Granted, you foot for the bill for like snacks. Like, what? Like, it still seems like a very skewed friendship. And if we were to pull back a little bit and be like, this seems like you're gaining a whole lot. Granted, I don't know. To me, I was just thinking about that as a unit of measurement of like, from her perspective, he's going above and beyond constantly, and from his perspective, you're great, just great essentially. So he's invested in that. But a part of me hopes that there's a certain point where like he starts to generate stuff by himself. Like, because to me, it does feel like if you were to pull yourself back, you're like, wait, you're doing how much for all of these people, and what are you getting out of it? Just basically nothing. I mean, but for you, yes, I know that you are gonna be like, oh, I'm getting friendship, I'm getting these fun memories, I'm getting this ability to like evaluate my abilities and like evolve them. But it's like, yeah, but you're still devoting like a fucking absurd amount of time to this other person's interest and etc. Granted, I'm assuming they go through that whole thing and they're like, yeah, she's trying to get into it too. He's probably like very much on board, etc. But I don't know. To me, I hope there's a moment where people start coming to him. Like I'm hoping so badly there's a moment where a big company from like a manga, from like an anime, from whatever, comes to him to design a costume for them, and he does it and he makes like bank. I hope that happens because I'm waiting because he hasn't really gotten his yet outside of like, again, he's gotten a lot of his for him, but not in terms of like, for anyone watching the situation, you're like, you're a catch, all right, my guy, main character, you're a fucking catch. Okay, you deserve a lot out of this as well. Okay, you feel like you're pulling the short end of the straw a lot of the time. Okay, she's great, but also your effort is kind of skewed. Like, you're putting a fuck ton of effort into this and getting functionally nothing from her besides like I like hanging out with you and I'm in love with you, but that's not flourished into anything yet. Also, maybe I'm probably the asshole. In hindsight, I'm the asshole. Fair enough. Some people are probably like, Grin, you don't do things because you need to get something in return. You do things to do things. Fair. Same time, also fucked up. Also fucked up. I'm sorry, if somebody loves you and cares about you, they should make sure you are taken care of as well. Not just constantly receiving. Granted, I feel like she does a lot too, and I think that's the thing that I hope we're going to see in the future, because that's the only thing, because she does a lot of like communication work, like good about conveying herself, like constantly building him up and making sure he knows his dreams are valid. But I want like the thing in my head that's like, man, I hope he gets paid. I guess this is part of my mind, but I hope he gets like something where like this this like skill acquisition is rewarded by like a big company being like, could you make us a costume? And then for him to be like, can my friend model it? And then for the both of them to succeed, but at least for him to clearly have like a vested interest of like, this is the job that will facilitate my future of making these dolls. I would love that. That'd be so wholesome, man. Wholesome as hell. I don't know if we're gonna get that. People who watch the manga, let me know. I feel like the manga is pretty ahead of everything else, but here's hoping that's the case. If not, then we're gonna have to wait a long time for a season 2. I don't think that's gonna be the case. Also, this is just like a nice slice of life show. I think they're gonna constantly keep introducing characters that are in this space. There's a part of me that kind of hopes they introduce a person that's not like obscenely pretty because everybody is just gorgeous. I want him to take a person who looks kind of normal and make them fucking gorgeous and make them live their best fucking life, you know? Right now, he's kind of just taking pretty people and making them more pretty. I'm kind of like, I hope he pops off and like shows, oh no, you guys don't even understand. I can make anybody look great. But ladies and gentlemen, needless to say, thank you so much for listening to me ramble about this. I cannot wait for season 2. This is a show that's incredibly easy to binge. And again, one of the things I want to talk about a little bit was the idea that I think passively what this show is kind of doing, and it's people have made fun of it and memed on it to some extent, but it's the idea that a lot of people deeply want to feel loved and deeply feel cherished, and also to have people not judge them for the things that they enjoy. And also for people to have, this is kind of like the male aspect of it, I think, is for people to realize that that's what kind of people want, or men want, I think, for a large degree. Some men, I shouldn't say all, but just from my perspective, I think a lot of people want a person that accepts the things and passions that the other person possesses, which is what the show does. You know, the show kind of, granted, it's a lot more on her side of things, where she's, you know, come watch these shows with me, come do these things with me, not like, I could try drawing your doll things too. Granted, that's the only thing he kind of does, so I understand the limitation there. But yeah, I think that's the wholesome aspect. Honestly, if it's just cut and dry, I think the show is designed to some extent that the idea of like the girl is like a kind of a tomboy, ready to be goofy and playful and energetic, and also happens to be lewd, and also not shy, and all of these things, and also super comfortable, also ridiculously, like there's clearly like a stacked deck for someone being like, what do dudes like this? Good, done. We'll do that. But also, I like to give credit to the person as well, to like, what do girls like? And I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, so please throw it in the comments who's a woman. Comment about if you did find the main character in any way interesting. And one final thing, I think this show is very, very fun and enjoyable, and like made me feel like I was just like time traveling essentially. But I did think I heard a lot of people say that it was like absurdly perfect, and like so good, and like you're hearing about how it's like peaking all the charts. And I think it's peaking all the charts because it's playing into like the things that both men and women deeply love and want and cherish about other things, which is like a lack of judgment, understanding, patience, caringness, the desire to want to partake in others' hobbies, and try to understand each other. Also, communication's good. All of these things I think people genuinely cherish and deeply love and crave within other human beings and in their relationships and companionship, of course. But I like it a lot. But I don't, like, to me, there's certain, like, goofy fun, like, romance, slice of life shows, which to me are, like, crazy good, you know? Like, Toridori, is that right? I think that's right. Like, those ones are just like, oh, come on, man. That's just, but that has a lot of episodes tied to it, so I feel like it's a stacked deck. But I don't know, to me, I would put this show at a solid 8. But to me, there's a couple like slice of life romance shows that are fucking 9s, like just super wholesome, super. I guess that's the thing. This show does a really good job about consistently delivering the wholesome punch. When you're expecting lewd, you get a little bit of lewd to pull you in, and then whap, a bitch slapped with wholesome love. Okay, and it's that constant back and forth, which I think people really enjoy, and yeah. But if you're a hopeless romantic, there's other shows that to me I found like again, I was expecting that in this show, and I think I just got a very, very fucking badass show, but not to the extent in which I hold some of those other shows in regard, I suppose. But it's still fantastic show. Love it to bits. Cannot wait for season 2. I hope you guys will talk to me about what your guys' favorite part of the show was, and if I'm correct. And I think one of the reasons why it did so well is because it was genuinely, to me, it genuinely responded to what both of those questions were, which is what do specifically young people truly value and desire within a girlfriend or a partner. And same thing for men. What is boyfriend, girlfriend? What do people want and cherish and fantasize about this idealized relationship? I think the show did a very good job at showing both of those. Also, I think a spider just crawled on my leg. I'm going to go scream. Thank you so much for your time. If you want to listen to me talk about anime more, subscribe to the channel. I always talk about season 2s, 3s, etc. right after I'm done watching season 1 or 4, whatever it is. And I try to talk to you guys about when the seasons are coming out, and also I just like to ramble at you guys about shows that I deeply love and think are fun. And I need people to talk about this stuff with, because I have no people to talk about it with. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.